Hi, my name is Emily Van Beveren, and I'm going to be sharing with you the case study that I did for our project. So, just some demographics about the student that I did the case study on. She is an 11-year-old girl who goes to Golden Elementary in Placentia, California. This is a public school that goes from kindergarten through 6th grade. Her and her older sister have attended this school their entire elementary career. Katie, the pseudonym that I chose to use for this student, has attended the school her whole life, and she is now in 6th grade. This school has roughly 800 students and is made up of a predominantly upper middle class group of students and families. This school has pretty good test scores for reading and math. It's in the 80s and 90s for students being at or above the grade level that they are supposed to be at. During the initial interview, Katie was telling me that she is incredibly proud of her math skills. She said that it is one of her favorite subjects because it just makes sense in her brain, because there's direct steps you should follow, and she's very proud of her ability to do math. Next, I'm going to be going over the 4 claims and the questions that I asked Katie to answer for me. The first claim is concepts and procedures. These are all questions geared at 6th grade students. So the first question is, students can explain and apply mathematical concepts and carry out mathematical procedures with precision and fluency. The question was, write an expression that is equivalent to 64 using each of the following numbers and symbols. So the symbols for this problem were 7, 7, 7, an exponent of 2, and the operations were plus, division, and parentheses. As you can see here, it took Katie a few tries to get the correct equation, but eventually she got the correct answer. For claim 2, which is problem solving, this is students can solve a range of well-posed problems in pure and applied mathematics, making productive use of knowledge and problem-solving strategies. The question for this was, Anna is saving to buy a bicycle that costs $135. She has saved $98 and wants to know how much more money she needs to buy the bicycle. The equation 135 equals x plus 98 models the situation where x represents the additional amount of money Anna needs to buy the bicycle. When substituting for x, which values, if any, from the set 0, 37, 98, 135, and 233 will make the equation true? Explain what this means in terms of the amount of money needed and the cost of the bicycle. So as you can see, Katie solved the equation, and then she wrote Anna would need $37 more in order to purchase the bike. Since the bike is $135 and she only has $98 saved, it would take $37 more for her to have enough to buy the bike. For the next claim, which is claim 3, communicating reasoning. Students can clearly and precisely construct viable arguments to support their own reasoning and to critique the reasoning of others. The question for this was, cube-shaped boxes will be loaded into the cargo hold of a truck. The cargo hold of the truck is in the shape of a rectangular prism. The edges of each box measure 250 feet, and the dimensions of the cargo hold are 7.50 feet by 15 feet by 7.50 feet, as shown below. Unfortunately, I was unable to include the diagram that was given to Katie during her test, but she did have the diagram. So the question is, what is the volume in cubic feet of each box? Determine the number of boxes that will completely fill the cargo hold of the truck. Use words and or numbers to show how you determine your answer. As you can see, she did it in 3 separate parts, which was the volume of the boxes, the volume of the truck and then divided those two to get her answer, which is also the correct answer according to the rubric provided for these questions. The last claim, which is claim 4, modeling and data analysis. Students can analyze complex real-world scenarios and construct and use mathematical models to interpret and solve problems. So this question was actually a 4-part question where the students had to create a way to make bracelets using a certain amount of beads of different colors, sizes, and shapes, and then find out the different prices to sell those, how much a profit would be, what if you wanted to make a necklace, etc. And after checking all of Katie's work, I was able to see that although it wasn't one of the sample answers provided, she got all of these correct based off of the own work that she did for herself. So some of the performance information. Some of her strengths were problem solving, communicating reasoning, and modeling and data. The only one that she struggled with or could be considered a minor weakness was problem solving. Concepts and procedures, because although she got every single question right on the test questions, the first one where she had to solve the equation to get the answer of 64, she had to do it multiple times, and I don't know if you could see it, but on the paper there was actually erased work, so she struggled and stumbled with that one a little bit. So during our third session where we met again, and after looking over her answers, it seemed to me that she was struggling was struggling with the rules of PEMDAS and maybe the exponents aspect of that problem. So when I sat her down and we talked about everything, I showed her an infographic about PEMDAS to explain kind of the rules of that again for her. And then we together went over what exponents are, how you use them, what do they mean in problems. And then together we went over another similar problem like the first one to make sure she really understood what went wrong and to help make her time doing problems like that in the future a little easier for her. Another thing that I would like to point out is that she was telling me how much she enjoyed math and everything, and I think it's really important to point out that I think her joy and constant understanding of math really led her to be able to excel in this test area because she is so confident and proud of her math abilities. So just to talk a little bit more about the interviews that took place, when I was talking to Katie, I observed when she was answering those questions for me, she looked at all of the pages of the questions and I could tell she was a little flustered. So when I asked her about that, she was telling me that the length of the questions stressed her out and seeing them all at once was stressful. So I think in the future, if I was to give this to my students or just in future lessons and stuff, to just give one question at a time to prevent the stress that caused her, because as we were talking about it and reviewing all of the things, she was telling me, because I asked her, do you think the stress that was caused to you by the length of all of the questions maybe impacted your ability to answer the first question because you were so focused on how much you had to do? And she said yes. So although there was no time limit for her to complete these questions, just the sheer amount she was asked to do was stressful. Again, she really enjoys math, so I think that was clear in her answers and her work, because if it's something students enjoy and understand, they're more likely to put in work and work hard and be proud of their answers. And she was just saying that for the first question, she was just confused, but then after working through it a couple times, she remembered how to solve it at the end, which is great, and that means she does understand the base concepts of PEMDAS and exponents, but again, it might have just been the stress that caused that anxiety for her. And then after we did the review with the chart and talking about exponents and redid another problem similar to the first one that took her more time than the others, she said that the review was really very helpful, and that made me really happy because it showed that the thought that I put in and the work that she put in came together to clarify some things for her. Lastly, just a little reflection. Even though some things that I learned about Katie can apply to all students, and I will take them into my future classroom, Katie was saying to me how helpful she thought the review was. And that made me stop and think, like, wow, if the review of these concepts that she already understood was helpful for her, little reviews throughout the year of old concepts that students have learned would be incredibly helpful for all students, whether they are confident with those subject areas or not. It all gives them a fresh reminder of what they have learned, what they need to do, etc. to solve a problem. So when I actually do have my own kids in school, and if I were ever to do a case study again, I would like to be able to incorporate a brief review of some of the concepts that would be brought up during the testing or hypothetical testing provided, as it would ensure that all students were on the same level, same playing field, and all had an equal opportunity to excel in that area. And another thing that really stuck out to me was that infographics are very helpful to reiterate concepts. So below, as you can see, there is the order of operations PEMDAS chart. That is the first thing I showed to Katie during our third session, the reflection and review. And the main thing that she pointed out to me was how clear this was and how it helped clear up any of her confusion. Because what she was saying is, although she understands PEMDAS, sometimes she gets confused with the multiplication and division and adding and subtracting parts. So this infographic, especially showing the M and D for multiplication and division and the A and S, addition and subtraction, together in the same columns, helped her to really see that although they're listed as MD and AS, they are completely interchangeable in the order of PEMDAS. And I also really like this one because it talks about exponents, so I was able to then branch off of that to give her a little bit more clarity on the exponents, because that was another thing that seemed to stumble her up in the first part, because she thought that exponents at first had to be connected to a number, not that they could be on the outside of a parenthesis. So I just think having images like this and others around the classroom, obviously not during testing, but throughout the year, are a great way to encourage students to use their surroundings to help them solve problems, and also to help students who can't always quite remember it to figure out the problems they need to solve, because they will know where they need to look in the classroom to help them solve it, and eventually they won't need to always read the signs and posters that are posted. So I think that's just a really, really great way of helping students to excel in math. And I really appreciated this case study and all the work that Katie did for this case study. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you have a great night.